people talk about toxic workplaces, usually you can, almost guess that they're probably low on empathy or emotional intelligence within these toxic workplaces. And if they're unable to listen to each other, then they have a much harder time listening to their customer. And if you want to be more innovative, you have to be able to have that pulse on the outside. And if you don't have that pulse, you can't just add more people to the machine that's toxic. You actually have to fix the machine, the internal structure of the company, in order to listen to each other so that you can listen on the outside.
Welcome to Season 15 of Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand that the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I'm joined by Shelton Davis, who is an experienced product and UX designer and researcher, team leader. He believes in the power of listening, understanding, and creating positive change. In 2018, he launched Empathy Lab, channeling over 15 years of human-centered innovation and a passion for personal connection. After a year of development, he introduced the Empathy Decathlon, a 10-skill training series to strengthen empathy and drive collective success. Inspired by his background as a competitive athlete, the workshop is engaging and research-backed and led by example. Shelton lives in Atlanta, Georgia, where he hikes, drinks coffee, dances, and practices empathy daily with his wife, Laura, daughter, Juliet, and son, Grayson. Welcome to the show, Shelton.
Anita, thank you. Thank you.
And I knew I was going to be interviewing you, so I bought one of your t-shirts. And I love it. I actually ordered it a couple of months ago, and because I live in Canada, I had trouble. So you troubleshot with me. You worked it out,
Yes.
and it came to me in time where I actually wore it in the desert of Jordan. So I can include a picture of me with that incredible
Wow.
background in the. So and I will also include in the show notes, of course, how everybody can get their t-shirt. So
Sounds
vote
great.
empathy and empathy.
Yeah,
Athlete. Gotta love it. A bunch of colors, sizes, the whole 9 yards.
you got it.
So Shelton, let's start. We're meeting for the first time. We were just saying before we hit record that, we're traveling in similar circles. We've been on each other's radar for years, and here it's finally happening,
Orbiting. Yeah.
2024. What brings you to the empathy world? And give me a little background besides the bio that I just read. What do you
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I I don't have any research to back this one, but I think those people that get to the empathy world have had profound lives where empathy has been shown to them.
Mm.
Um, and I do believe that my childhood was really rich in perspective taking and listening and being with others that were very different than I am and I was. And so I think the Empathy Lab is just, the newest iteration of me getting into empathy, as a actual, how do I help other people do it, right? As you said, I'm a designer. Usually I'm listening to customers or users or clients to figure out what is it that I can build for them or build with them. But now it's like I've been realizing for a while now that we're missing, well, not missing a muscle, or we have an atrophied muscle that
Mm.
is empathy, right?
Atrophied. Yeah, that's a really good frame.
Yeah.
We have the innate capacity to empathize and we can become better at it, but we've actually the muscle has atrophied over
Yeah.
some time and we got to get it back, right?
I mean, that's why we are wearing these t-shirts.
That's
You're,
why we're
you're
wearing the t-shirts. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack and we're definitely going to talk about your 10-step program.
sure.
Let me start with, what do you think are some of the frequent misunderstandings around empathy? What do you think people don't get or get wrong or
Ooh. Oh man, I wanted to know this one from you too. I think frequent misunderstanding with empathy is agreement.
mm,
And it's not. Empathy, from my perspective and from everything that I've come to research and understand, is it's understanding. It is not I understand and agree. It's not I. It doesn't mean that you have to actually take a compassionate action after it. It's just I understand what someone else is feeling, going through. Um, so I think that's one of the big ones. And there's one other that I got checked live on an executive call that there's no such thing as self empathy. And I had an individual read me the definition from Webster's dictionary that it's about empathy is about other people. And I was like, yes, I hear you on the dictionary, but here's the research that there is such a thing as self empathy, and it looks the same way. It's understanding what is going on inside. And so at least those are the big ones, those big two. It's like it's not agreement. Like I can empathize with someone that is radically different than I am, that has different political views, and not say that I agree with them, you know? So yeah, I think those are the two.
So Webster's needs to be updated, right?
Oof. Yeah.
So
I
is
wonder
your
what AI is saying now. That's my big, I haven't even checked that yet.
so for those listening and watching, Shelton is actually asking ChatGPT for the definition of empathy.
All right. I made sure not to ask my empathy bot because it would be biased, but I asked the general chat GPT what the definition of empathy was. And as you all, maybe you've experienced, it's very verbose. Here we go. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It involves recognizing and being sensitive to another person's emotions, thoughts, and experiences. Empathy can be broken down into different components. I'll give you the three components that it has. I won't go into it. Affective empathy, cognitive empathy, and compassionate empathy. Empathy plays a crucial role in social interactions, communication, and building relationships as it helps individuals connect and respond to others in a caring and supportive manner.
Yeah, not too bad. Okay, what's your working definition of empathy? I'll share mine too.
Oh gosh, working definition. Uh, because of the way I approach empathy, it starts with self. So I talk about empathy as the understanding of your own feelings and emotions and context of your life, so that you can do the same for the people that are beyond you, right? And so if you can understand better your emotions, what's going on, you're going to reflect that on them. Like what are their emotions? What are their feelings? What's the context of their life right now?
Yeah. And why do you think empathy is so darn important right now?
Oh my gosh. That's a loaded question. It's so important right now because I think that we have a severe breakdown in community. And I think that when we don't have the connection of, beyond families, but of like human scale communities, then we start feeling alone, then we start feeling against, and then we start having a us versus them dynamic. And if any of that sounds real to at least to those in the United States that are hearing this, empathy is I don't want to say the cure, but it's definitely the exercise that we need in order to become get back to the humanity that we used to have with each other in community.
Yeah, amen to that. So let's go back to your work with UX. Okay, your
Yeah.
user experience, design thinking. I teach a social entrepreneurship class. We do design thinking. We know that the first step is empathy. So,
Mm.
what does that actually mean when you're designing for a product or a service? How is empathy deployed?
Good question. So let me find something on my desk. Ooh, lipstick. So I'm sitting at my wife's desk.
Okay.
It can be my desk. I could have lipstick. Nothing right there. But you got lipstick right here, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too. It's blue, and I think it changes color. Go figure. But empathy is understanding the person who's going to use this, right? And how and what context of the situation they're going to use it in. If this lives in a purse, then when do they pull it out? Are they doing it while they're driving? Like getting to know the context of the situation and why they're putting it on. Maybe they're refreshing up for a date. Um, then that will go into the design brief, if you will, on what the designers will be creating to make sure that this lipstick is the best experience for that person. So it's empathy is it gives you the data. I like to think of empathy as data. It gives you the data, especially within UX, to be able to serve the person that is going to pay you money to experience your experience.
So if you're busy listening to users to
Hmm.
design for their experience,
Yeah.
you don't have to go into details about the clients and all that kind of stuff, but what has surprised you? Like just for example, like something that has stayed with you, it's like, wow, that's a bit of insight that I couldn't have guessed.
Oh gosh. I was working with a company that's doing bike helmets. And we were trying to uh, we were trying to make a better bike helmet. Like, how do you get how because why is usually a bike helmet doesn't come into play if you're a road biker, if you're falling, it's usually because a car has hit you. All right. And so the in order to make bike helmets safer, how do you make them more visible? Right. And that was one of the aha moments. It's like it really has to do about visibility of the helmet.
Uh,
Uh yes, the padding and the structure of the helmet has to be withstand structural guidelines. But on the other side of that, it's like how is it reflective? How do cars see it?
right.
And as we were doing research between users and people that drive cars that either are pro bike or like anti bike people, right? Um, we started to see a whole. Yes, they have to be able to see it, but side view mirrors were not efficient enough. And so we started talking about um, giving people bike helmets and then giving them a convex mirror to put on their own car because it gives you a wider view while you're a driver. And so we started talking with car manufacturers in a small sense about how to do more. What are those the sensors and the mirrors? And if you couldn't do sensors, how could we maybe even look into creating a company to do aftermarket sensors on mirrors to alert people to the bikes so that they don't have to use the bike helmet?
Love that. That is a
Yeah.
great example. Glad I asked that question. Brings to life, what it's all about.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think the role of empathy is in innovation?
Oof. Um, yeah, innovation is a it interest every company, young or old, wants to innovate. And what that means is new products, new customers, right? Or um, better products, more money from the customers, or more trust, or more something from the customer, right? I think that there's this is where the two sides of empathy comes into play because there's internal in the company empathy that needs to happen in order for them to be able to hear the people on the outside. So I'm sure you've heard companies or just that people talk about toxic workplaces. Usually you can, almost guess that they're probably low on empathy or emotional intelligence within these toxic workplaces. And if they're unable to listen to each other, then they have a much harder time listening to their customer. And if you want to be more innovative, you have to be able to have that pulse on the outside. And if you don't have that pulse, you can't just add more people to the machine that's toxic. You actually have to fix the machine, the internal structure of the company, in order to listen to each other so that you can listen on the outside. So innovation and empathy, like they're best friends. And if there is low empathy within workplaces, it makes the innovation cycle very hard. This is where disruption comes in from other companies.
And that is one way to make the business case for more empathic cultures in the workplace. I also
Mhm.
say that,
Yeah.
when you have empathy in the workplace, there's greater social capital. So people can take more risks together, have more fun, innovate together because there's trust built into the relationship. There's also like mental health benefits, all of that.
It's so huge. Yeah, oh, it's exponential once you put that type of like practice inside. It's people stay longer. They love it there. They work harder, right? They're more efficient. the data's out.
So let's talk about the training that you do. You've got this 10 step process, I think you call it, 10 skill training series called the Empathy
Yeah.
Decathlon. So
Yes.
you're an athlete. Tell me about this.
A long time ago athlete. Mm, uh, we'll give you real quick backstory, and then I'll tell you about the process. Do you ever feel like you're multitasking and just taking on too many tasks, Anita?
Always.
Always. Okay. I think that's like an adult thing. We could have another conversation about that one. Um, when I was an athlete, I did track and field, and there came a point where I was doing way too many events. I was doing the 400 meters and the high jump and the long jump and helping on relays. And there was a point in time when my coach said, "Hey, you should just do this decathlon thing." I was like, "Okay, what is that?" He's like, "You're going to need to learn how to pole vault and throw the shot put and do other things." I can do this. I'm young. I haven't broken myself yet. Um, I did it. I was decently competitive. And it was eye-opening that I didn't have to be the best at all of those things because 10 events. But I had to be skilled in them. I had to know how they worked
Hmm.
so that I can do decently, right? And I think it was a really good point in my life to realize that I didn't have to be the best. I just had to be okay.
Hmm.
And that's kind of helped translate some of the ethos into the Empathy Decathlon 10-step process. It's a way of training me empathy and we empathy. So first five skills are about me, second five are about we, and you don't have to be the best at any of them, but you have to know how they work. And as I learned over time, training people how to be more empathetic, if I brought them all the research, gave them all the data, they would like do this with me, Anita. Just kind of like fall asleep. Just be like, you just kind of fall asleep while they're listening to me. And I was like, I can't do this. So I had to have 10 steps that were easily understandable, like how do you hear, or what is your energy, or what is feedback. And so we take them through these micro skills that kind of layer on each other so that they can be more, we can build those atrophied muscles that we talked about earlier, right? If we can build the atrophied muscles for yourself, self-care, and others care, we get all the benefits.
So can we hear all 10? Would you be able
Yeah.
to unpack?
So the first one is energy. It's loosely based off of the energy project work that Tony Schwartz has done. The second one is baggage. It
Okay, so
takes
can I, so I want to slow you down just a bit because
yeah,
I want to understand how is energy work related to this larger thing around empathy. So just like maybe, give me a minute for each.
yeah, okay, I'll do that. All right, so energy is the first one. Um, if what do the flight attendants tell you when you're on a plane and they talk about the oxygen mask? They tell you to put yours on first, right? Energy is the first thing we need to like start to recognize in the process and how we work with ourselves. And so the first skill, which energy, we take them through the four types of energy. We take them through what's your physical energy, what is your emotional energy, mental, and spiritual. And so as part of the practice, we have them check in with those things, either daily or whenever you need it, in order to be like, all right, I feel good. I'm kind of low over here. I can be in this situation, right?
So it's a real self-awareness piece.
It's a self-awareness piece.
Got
You
it.
got it. The first four skills are really self-awareness pieces, but it breaks them down because the
Yeah.
second one, if you think of energy as one side of the coin of like how I show up, baggage is the other side.
Mm.
So baggage is the second skill, is what is weighing you down. And I try to keep away from the negative connotations of what baggage can mean and just more so of and baggage can be negative, but I don't want to just say everything that's bad in your life listed out.
Mhm.
But it's just like you have a calendar that is looks like a Tetris game, right? That's baggage, right? Same with baggage. We break it down so people can get a better understanding of it. You have individual baggage, things that I might be carrying that I can deal with. Let's say before this meeting, Anita, I did not have any lunch. I might be like, that could be baggage. I'm hungry. Um, Beyond that, we would have community baggage, like what's happening in our families, what's happening in our neighborhood. Society baggage would be like, what's happening with the vote here in Georgia?
Mhm.
That would be society baggage. Maybe I'm carrying something about thinking about women's rights here in Georgia. And then you've got global baggage, something much bigger. We're talking about the unfortunate war that's happening in Palestine and Israel. We have the wars in Ukraine, right? It's like that's things that are so far beyond our touch that if we constantly let it load on us, it's going to have its impact, right? Self-awareness. Still with me?
Yes, that's two. Love it.
That's
Yeah, I'm
two.
really
All
glad we're
right.
doing this. I'm really glad. Okay,
All
go.
right.
Great.
So number three, let's see here. Number three, because those are pretty gritty ones, it's called self-awareness. It's like you just did that thing over there. Let's go a little bit deeper and like, how are you in the world? What does your power and privilege feel like in this world?
Mhm.
We have a power and privilege wheel that we take them through to just, it's not a shaming wheel. It's just like, what is it? Who are you in the context of a situation? And then how can you be an advocate or an ally? It's just kind of an assessing like how you can be in the situations you walk into.
Right, and that's where intersectionality comes in, right? Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Yeah. And the great thing about taking them through this power and privilege thing, then you start realizing not just the power that other people have, but maybe even the lack of power and the lack of privileges and how you can step up and show up for those people in the meeting or in the community that might not have the voice or might not have the financial privilege to have a position,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because that's some pretty big self-awareness stuff. The fourth skill is called inventory. It kind of is just like it's a pause because there's two that we believe in slowing down to speed us, slowing down to kind of um, be more effective and efficient for yourself and others. So inventory is have you checked in with your energy and baggage? Because I know that humans just kind of skip steps sometimes. So it helps them kind of like regain where they're at. It's a pause because the next step is a bridge. So you're talking about intersectionality, right? Right now, we've only kept the person inside. They're all up in here, right? Now the pause is before the bridge, which is hearing or listening. So that is when you kind of like, I have this data about myself. And now with number five, I get to start listening to my world, right? Or listening to a specific conversation
We're
uh,
sensing. Yeah.
or sensing. And thank you for saying that because listening is not just with these, right?
Mhm.
Uh, it is with all of this.
Yeah.
Uh,
And before you go on to the we, because I know that you're like energetic and want to get there, I'm so excited. Just because I love every excuse to bring this quote to the world. There's this
yes,
guy that I'm looking to the quote on the side of my wall here, Bayo
yes.
Akomolafe, who said,
Oh,
he's a Nigerian-born philosopher. I think he lives in the States now, or maybe in Europe, I'm not sure. But he says, the times are urgent. Let's slow down.
mm,
Right?
yeah. I,
That's what you're calling on, right?
that's it.
Let's slow
I got
down.
to hear him speak a month ago or something like that. He's an amazing gentleman. I think he's living in Delhi right now.
Oh, okay, he's in Delhi. Got it.
But he's all over the place. Like
Yeah,
you never know where he really is.
right.
Yeah, it's times. What is it? Times are urgent.
Yeah, let's slow
Yeah,
down. Let's take a
let's slow down.
beat.
Um, Bringing a little bit of track and field nerdiness into this, there's something called the penultimate step. Um, and some track coaches love it or some track coaches hate it, but it's the step before the last. That's really what it means.
Hmm.
And in most of the jumping Track and field. Everyone. The Olympics are this summer, everyone. So, and Anita, you watch some track and field and watch the second to last step of every jump because you're going to see them do something different than the last step. They have to transition themselves to go from, let's say it's long jump, it's going this way. They have to transition from this to this, right? And that transition has to be thought through and it's a little bit slower than everything else. And so the slowdown is so that you can do more things. And yeah, it's
Okay, so let me ask only because, and it's not because I'm stalling, I want to get to the other five, the we stuff, but
yeah,
my husband and I are running our first marathon of our
yeah.
lives, 51. I'm running it in September. I ran the longest I've ever run just yesterday, 14 kilometers. I guess
Congratulations.
about like 11 miles or so. Thank you. Took an hour and 45 minutes. I've never run so long. What advice would you give? What is there a penultimate step for marathoners?
Um, I think the penultimate step for a marathon is almost like the time like maybe the night before realizing I did all I can and I did amazing to get ready for this. Whatever happens tomorrow, it's gonna be fun, right? Like I I think that there's so much pressure put on these races, and there's a almost the missing reality that if you were a kid, would you just want to wake up and be like, I'm gonna go have a fun day running,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Maybe a marathon doesn't sound like fun to most people, but it's like I don't know, take the pressure off. Maybe that's it. Take the pressure off.
I love that. I'm going to keep that in my mind. You know, one of the things that I've noticed, I know we're kind of in French, we would say entre parenthèses, like in brackets, right? We're like
Yes.
sort of on a diversion here for a second. But one of the things that I've noticed, and the reason I decided I'm not a physical person, this is like the most I've ever moved my body. Like I've never taken on these feats of like climbing mountains and stuff. I've never been attracted to any of that that required like
Yeah.
physical endurance. But the reason why I'm doing it is that I had an experience in my book tour, and I won't get into it now because I've talked about it before, where I just realized that I've written a whole book about empathy, and I'm not sure I've done enough practice on myself
Mm, mm.
to like to be a more empathic person, really intentionally, really. And so I said, okay, I've got to find all the ways that I can think of, all the different modalities to try to be a more empathic person. And by that I mean like take my ego out and allow my consciousness to elevate. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. And I thought maybe doing something really tough physically that would require a lot of effort and consistency that I don't think I can actually do, but I've got to just like really test myself. Maybe that's going to give me an aperture to what that would mean.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
in the practice of getting there, because I'm only week 6, I think I just started week 6 yesterday, so 3
Yeah.
months to go out of a 20-week program. I have discovered that I have a lot of thoughts that I wouldn't necessarily have in my day to day because somehow running opens up this like space. So it's made me think about daydreaming a little bit, like
Wow.
the possibility of like what it's like to have unstructured time just to sort of like let thoughts come through me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why what you're saying resonates is that it's not about like planning and executing and effort. It's more like, okay, do the work and then just let stuff happen.
So let go. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The your notion, your discovery of daydreams during the runs, is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's space, it's liminal space, which I think is kind of incredible place to find flow. Because in that moment, while you're trucking down the street, you can do nothing more. Like your body's taxed to what it's going to do. Your mind is just going to be just bumping around, kind of seeing things, which I think is a fantastic place to be. You familiar with oh, why am I forgetting his name? Plum Village.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Tip that hand.
hitting on Han. And he has a really great video from a few years ago that talks about walking meditation and like walking in forest. And I think that where he finds himself and where those Buddhists find themselves in walking meditation, sneakily runners get into more often than don't know it. They're like, oh, I'm thinking through these things and or I'm letting go of things, which is kind of nice.
So happy we did this little,
I I'm excited.
aside.
When is your marathon?
September 21st.
September 21st. I'm writing it down.
Oh, cool. Right on. I intentionally bought this t-shirt. Let me show it again and make sure that people can go onto your website and order. There's other versions of it because I knew I was running the marathon when I bought it. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to wear it because I don't know what the weather's going to be, but I certainly love to wear it any other
I
day.
I've had so this could be a long one. No, I'll keep it short. Track and field athletes, long distance runners, they don't make that much money.
Mhm.
And I've been asked a few times to create an Empathy Lab kit, which would be like running shorts, running shirt, sweatshirt, and the full thing for the professional athletes that are unsponsored. And so if I do that, I know who I want to sponsor on September 21st.
And I'll wear it. It's so awesome. So
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so let's get back to the five because I'm sure the listeners or viewers are like, okay, great,
What
but
is it?
I'm on a cliffhanger now.
Yeah. So I like doing this so that we know where we came from. Let's see here. Five fingers. Energy, baggage, self-awareness, inventory, listening. We're on the bridge to number six, which is responding. All right. So with with listening, again, as you mentioned, full sense listening. Like at, if you have low energy, sometimes the listening is more shallow, right? And to be able to recognize this as you go into a listening experience is a good thing. But let's just say we have full spectrum of listening ability to the other person. We get all this information in, and our brains, most Western, civilized brains are in the solve mode, right? And before we do the solving thing or correcting or whatever thing it is that we're primed to do, we help with number six, individuals learn how to respond or just like answer back what they heard, right? So you told me you said this, or it looks like you might be feeling that way. Am I correct? It's a very therapy oriented modality,
Yeah, reflecting
but
back.
it also makes people feel heard, seen, and care for it a little bit. And it gives them the opportunity to correct you if you misheard something, or you might have put something into it that might have been a solve, right? And so like that responding it's a hard one for people to do, because they want to either get it over with or give their thoughts, or they're not really listening to hear the other person. They're listening to make up a response.
And our brains are wired that way. Our brains are designed to
Yeah.
respond, not designed to understand. And so we have to be intentional about that. So that's what the sixth step is to
Number
reflect
six.
back,
Yeah.
right? Touch base. Did I get you right? Am I hearing you? Okay, good.
You got it. Yeah. I mean, we've all been in those conversations where you said something big and the other person just is like on another topic. And it's like,
Yeah,
I poured out my heart to you.
yeah,
And now what?
yeah,
How do we, yeah. Shall we move on?
yeah. And people underestimate the power
Mm-hmm.
that exists in reflecting back when you heard somebody, because to somebody who feels like they have been heard,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a key clicks open, the defenses go down. You heard me. Now I'm ready to listen, even. Like it's a gift.
Right. It
Yeah.
is a gift.
Yeah. Got
Um,
it.
I think, and I'm teasing this on the side of Empathy Lab. I think that exchange, the 5-6 exchange, is where intimacy starts to build. It's almost like you don't even have to go any further. If someone gives you the gift, the presence of presence,
Mhm.
to be able to hear you, as you mentioned, that's I think that's growing to be a pretty rare gift nowadays.
And let's sell folks on how great it is for self to be in that space because it's shown, research has shown that
Mm,
we are in this like space of connection, right? Where we're
yeah.
feeling each
Yes.
other. Oxytocin and serotonin flood our bodies and replace the stress hormones of cortisol and stuff like that. So it's healthier for our bodies because we're feeling like a sense of bonding and a sense of
Wow.
trust, and that feels good to us. It lights up our brain, makes us feel good. So why not do more of that?
Why not? Who wouldn't want more of the good feelings versus the stress?
Right.
Seems like a pretty easy way to give ourselves internal vitamins, right?
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
Um, yeah, and I think you've been in both the giving and the receiving of those good gifts, right? And you go away floating. You go like, wow, I that's nice. Why would I ever go back to anything else?
Right. Okay. So let's interrupt the
Yeah.
programming just to ask the existential question. So why have we gone so far off course? What's your thesis on like, if it's so good for us and so good for relationships and so good for society, why are we not doing it more?
Like most good things, I believe that we've commoditized it.
Hmm.
I think that if I don't have the data to support this, but I don't even say it's a belief. I think it's easier to control people that are scared,
Hmm.
that are stressed, that are full of cortisol and it's kind of angry, or despondent or lethargic or all of the any of the new terms that are coming out now, lonely. It's somewhat weirdly easier to control them than it is people that are happy and awake and exploratory and curious and helpful and um, yeah, I think that we've gotten away from it. Do you have your phone near you?
I do.
We've gotten away from it because this serves us artificial. What does Esther Perel say? Artificial intimacy.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of players in the reason why we've gotten away from it, and I think the people get exhausted from the artificial or the stress,
Hmm.
start to come back to like, how can I have this connection with another human being?
Yeah. And I think you are right because I interviewed somebody recently who was telling me that when we have cortisol flushing through our bodies, we
Mm.
actually go into our capacity to think shrinks to very binary options that we keep repeating. And so when we're feeling
Interesting.
less stressed and we're like in this creative space, peaceful space, we can see nuance, we can see complexity, we can see the
Mm.
systems as opposed to just sort of what's right or wrong, black or white. So
Mm.
I think you are totally onto something.
Well, I need to watch or listen to this interview you were talking about. That's I think I'm sure the data's out there, as you said. Like the cortisol does things to us that makes it so that big companies can serve us video games that or social media feeds that kind of steal all of our sensing that we
Mm.
should be spending with our neighbor trying to give us coffee, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So number eight.
Oh my goodness, number eight. All right. We did respond. Wait, let's see here. 6, 7. Oh, sorry. Number 7. Ask.
Oh, ask.
Ask. This is where like if you have missing data, like, let's say, Anita, you told me about um why you like this makeup, but you don't tell me why the shape of it is like that. I can be like, Anita, you told me about this lipstick that you love, but tell me more about the shape so that I can get more data into my understanding of this thing. Um, we asking questions is a very it's a it's an art. And if good researchers that do a lot of qualitative research know how to not bias the way that they ask questions so they can allow the person to open up. And so we go through within that skill how to ask better questions, how to not how to ask open-ended and not close-ended questions, and how to not use the word why because it feels accusatory and people start shutting down, and use tell me more about, or what did you mean by this, or help me understand, right? It's really an exercise in, I don't know, kind of like building a puzzle together.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So
Yeah.
asking questions, number 7. Awesome.
No,
Okay.
number seven's ask. Number eight, this was another pause because we've got all this information. Just like we had all the information about ourselves, we now have a lot of information about what you and I had just exchanged. It could be about a product. It could be about the vacation that you just had. It could be about a very heartfelt thing that just happened to you. Um, Meaning making is number eight. It's the pause. It's like, all right, so what has Anita shared with me? What meaning are we making of this? Did you just share with me a heartfelt thing, and I just need to be there with you and not give you any solutioning or anything like that you didn't ask for, you just wanted me to hear you? Then sometimes you stop at eight. We've made meaning, I heard you about the thing. Sometimes, and this is where innovation and product teams and corporate teams come into play. Sometimes we want to do that. There's a next step, right? I got all this meaning and I have got to do something with it. Like, oh, you asked me how to, or I asked you how to solve a problem. And you're like, hey, Shelton, I know how to solve a problem. Let's go do that next step because we both have enough information in this meaning making step. That sets us up, if you're ready for it, for number nine, which is feedback. Originally, I had it as critique, but some of the people were like, no, you can't say critique. It makes people scared. I'm so used to critique as a designer because that's how I like live. I put my stuff on a wall or I put my stuff in front of other people. I'm like, do your best. I want to hear all of it. But feedback is something that's resounding throughout every part of the world. So from meaning making, we get into feedback, and that's really just a collaborative effort. It's not necessarily like you should do this, or you shouldn't say should, but this is maybe a next step we might look at. Feedback is a not many people have you ever taken a class in feedback? Do you even teach? Do you teach a class in feedback?
No,
No. It's one of those things that have you ever, were you taught how to balance a checkbook in school?
probably in some home ec class. Yeah.
So home ec class, yeah. I think most managers of people and most employees that are under managers are just supposed to understand how feedback works.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that they'll just mimic whatever else is happening in the organization. And if the organization doesn't know or give people pointers on how to give feedback, it's going to go badly,
Right.
right? It's going to be shame inducing. It's going to not be based on like behavior, or so it's teaching people feedback. Most companies want me to just go straight to that skill. I'm like, I would love to, but I got to teach you the rest of it so you can show up for it.
Yeah.
We've got a little checklist that one of the big questions in it is, can you give feedback and not change the relationship drastically?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the feedback is, you're, I'm trying to think of something that like a little kid would say, you're a stupid poopy pants. That's not real good feedback, right? That's just insulting. then maybe you shouldn't say it. It kind of goes along the lines of if you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. But with the feedback, if you can't frame the feedback in a constructive way, maybe keep working on it, right? Before you deliver it, that might negate the relationship.
Okay, so assuming you're teaching this as a skill, you
Yes.
probably practice it a little bit. I'm curious, you have two children. Do you ever, and you're coupled. How helpful is it to develop this skill in your own family environment?
Oh, wow. I think I learned a lot of how to give. Every person's different, right? Everyone receives and gives feedback in different ways. And I like ages are different, genders are different. And so the big thing that I've realized in my practice is that meaning making step is even slower. It's like, so my son's 10. I'm like, so what do you tell me more about the video game that you want to play right now, but you know you don't have any more time to play? Will give me his stories, right? And so that I know where his pinch points are and I know where he can be at ease. And so when I do get feedback, I try to make sure to stay away from the pinch points that is making him sad and into something that will help us, understand what we need to do next. It's not easy. It's a dance. It is a dance. You don't know what the other person's rhythm is, but I think that's where the pause is all about. Like feeling out, even asking. And we teach this in the course. Ask the other person, do you want me to give you feedback?
Mhm.
And then what kind of feedback are you looking for? So that you can like go to your little workbench and be like, all right, so these are the things I heard, and here's the feedback that I can give. It's it's a it's a dance. It's definitely a dance. What about you? I'm curious about you and feedback. How is it that you structure it?
Um, I still think that I know about empathy and see the power of empathy in all sorts of contexts and am a super big work in progress in terms of really funneling it through my own life.
Yeah.
Um, and, but I know that it matters. I absolutely know that it matters. So, do I do enough reflecting back? No. Do I offer solutions when people bring me problems? Yes. And so, just like yoga is a practice, I think empathy is a practice.
Oh, think about how many years of alternative practice you and I have had, right? And it's we're unlearning and relearning and new learning and explored learning, all of those things.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I like to think of the things that we have in our lives that we're trying to improve on as like seeds we're always watering. You don't know really what season it's in. Maybe
Yeah.
it's going to grow a whole lot, but maybe it's going to be kind of small for a little bit. But we got to just keep watering those seeds with the sun's going to keep coming up and coming around and like helping them grow. It's when we stop watering them and not caring about it that things get
Bingo.
stacked, right?
Bingo. 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 We don't want it to atrophy. Okay. Take us through number 10, and then I have a last question.
All right. So if every client that I talk to wants to skip all the way to number 9, which is feedback, everyone wants to just start with number 10, which is called lead. Everyone wants empathetic leaders. I get it. I want a bunch of empathetic leaders too. But and they're usually disappointed on how I turn this around on them. I'm like, you know what number 10 is? It's holding up all the other 9, right? It is holding space for yourself to be in practice with the other skills. And the important part, if you are a real big L leader, you need to make sure that you're you're holding space for other people to practice the same,
Mm.
right? You have the capacity, ability, authority to give people space between meetings to figure out feedback, space between sessions to think about how they want to listen. And I think that's the big big two parts to this. Little L lead is like you're going to be doing all the other 9 skills in constant like within 5 seconds, within 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. It really depends on the situation. And then if you are a CEO, a VP, or the leader of a team of people, it's important for you to realize that your employees need the space to be able to pause. And if you give them no space to pause, know what you're going to be getting. You're going to get people that are not being responsive in compassionately responsive in the way that they approach you. They're being stressed and reactive, right? And if you want the best results, no matter what it is, from healthcare to childcare, you want compassionate responses.
Love that. Okay, so people can check out the program by going onto the link in the show notes. Love that you took us through that and took your time.
Thank you for letting me take the time.
Oh no, this is so important. I love this. I love this. There's methodology. There's a method to the madness. We can learn to become more empathic individually, collectively, across society. We can do it.
We are doing it.
Hope so. Hope so. That's an optimist speaking. I'm with you.
Yes.
I'm with you. I've got to bring more people along. What is a moment in your time, Shelton, a moment in your life where you have been on the receiving end of empathy, and what did that mean for you?
I can say this last week, my ER visit because I told you about this earlier. This has been a hard week for me. My ER visit last Tuesday. I'm okay. I'm healthy. And then my entire family getting COVID right after I got back. The outpouring of it's both empathy and compassion was heartfelt, right? And from the people that I felt didn't see me, or like neighbors that just came out of the woodworks and help and like, hey, I heard you were in the ER. Is there anything that we can do for you? I think that's some pretty empowering stuff, especially in a place where sometimes you don't feel like you're in community. Even people at work that I work with, they would message me privately and say, "Hey, you doing okay?" Right? So I think there's a big spike in like empathy as a practice in the past week for me. And I'm not going to negate any of that, but I want to say that I'm grateful for it. And I do know that we have a really, I think, good muscle memory on how to react to people in emergencies. I think that what our work is, Anita, is to help people bring it not just from emergency empathy down into like just normal everyday empathy, right?
Boring old pedantic empathy.
What's that?
Boring old pedantic empathy.
Pedantic empathy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is where, we change the world, isn't that threads between just everyday life.
So the reason I love asking that question, I never know what stories are going to be told. And I think the invitation to anybody who's been listening and watching through the whole episode is, what are you going to do now? You're going to hang up and let this just vaporize in the ether, or are you going to turn this into some form of empathic action? Call a friend. It's not an emergency necessarily. Just, reach out to somebody and show some empathy.
Yeah. Reach out, listen, sense.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Shelton, thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon, especially after a tough week, as you put it. And thank you all for watching and listening.
Anita, thank you. This was so enjoyable.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We got to do this again.
Let's do this again. Well, you're going to hear from me after the marathon.
Oh, I'm gonna contact you before the marathon, see how it's going.
Okay, I look forward to it. Thank you all for watching and listening. We'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. So now the invitation is to subscribe to the channel and consider picking up a copy of Purposeful Empathy. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.